So now we're going to hopefully go forward slowly. Up here to 25 yards, wherever close to where our landing zone is. So you can see there's a little bit of an uphill climb here. So remember when we're hitting our shot on our form 1 here, when we're hitting our shot, we're going to 25 yards, but we're coming down in the air 45 yards from the middle of the green because our rollout is assumed to be at an average of 20 yards. So when we go back to look at our hole, we're going to see we're probably right about where 45 yards is at, and you can see there's some uphill nature here that's going to prevent the ball from rolling normal distance. And in this case, the hill is somewhat severe, so we're going to have a roll adjustment here. But when we do roll for a non-tee shot, if you go to your roll chart, you'll see that the option that we have for that, where can I find my page? The option we have for that, for a subsequent full shot, is to apply a 2 adjustment. So we'll have a 2 adjustment on our form 1 for this golfer under roll. And then that's going to result in us having to definitely increase this approach shot length. So when we do our roll and it's not a tee shot, we still have to get the proper value, but let's just say, to make it really easy, we're just going to say that it's going to roll 5 yards less than the 15 to 25 that's expected when the ball rolls out. So basically, we're just going to adjust our approach shot here to 30 yards.
Kyle, can I add something here?
Yeah.
You wrote in the adjustment number 2 up there in the roll application. When you write in that 2 adjustment, it's a bit confusing because what you're actually doing is making a +1 adjustment under roll to take care of that 5 yards for each 1 point of roll plus or minus. So when you write the 2 in there, it confuses me, the captain, as to exactly what you're saying. So my suggestion would be that you would not use the 2 adjustment. You would simply write down the net application or +1. That seem reasonable?
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. I mean, I think the important thing, at least how I understand it, Mark, is that even if on my subsequent shot I went from, let's say that it's going to roll a lot less, if I change this to 40 instead of 25, I would still only have a single adjustment here, a 2 adjustment, so my value would still be 1 for roll. At least that's how I understand or how I read it. Because I think the +1, 2, 3, or the plus and minus 1, 2, 3, and 4 only applies to the tee shot.
So as we read that roll adjustment application under the number 2 adjustment, it has +1, -1. So if you had tee shot roll of +2 and then a subsequent evaluation with the 2+ adjustment for another +1, you'd have a total net of +3, at
Right.
which point your captain would be able to know that you're going to be adjusting the approach shot length by 15 yards. So
Right.
I just find the putting of the adjustment symbol down there to be confusing when I'm trying to figure out what the rater has done in fact.
Right. Yeah. So we'll end up just our end of value for roll. It will just be a +1 on this hole.
Kyle, I would instruct my people to put parentheses around that 2, then I know it's straight off the table on 13, and I know it's a 2 adjustment.
I was thinking the same thing. Thank you, John.
Okay. And we, so however we do it, if they're just, we just need to make it clear. Maybe there's even just you write it down in the notes, or talk to your captain after, talk to him or her after to let them know, you know, how you wrote that. So
when we
then,
get to the hole, Kyle, when we get
Yep.
to the, I would say, suggest that while you're still on the hole, once we get to the green, everybody, you can, or discuss it before you leave the hole, so you don't forget, because you know, we're doing it hole by hole.
right. Yep, no, that's a good idea for sure. So let's say we're in our landing zone now. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to get our distances. We're going to look for any adjustments that we might have. You know, at this point, you might consider potential fairway adjustment, because you've got kind of like a little banking feature that might kick the ball towards the fairway potentially. It might be just as easy to play from out here as it is in the fairway, so you might have a potential W- adjustment here. So let's just for example purposes, let's just say that we have that. So here we measure our landing zone 2, and we measure it to be 21, but we've got a W- adjustment, and we'll write that down right there. So our 21 and then W-. And then we'll do our same thing here with our lateral. In our landing zone 2, we measure it out. In this case here, it's a lot closer. So we're going to be at L28. And write that down there. And then we'll also look here, just like we do for any landing zone, we'll look for fairway bunkers. We don't have that here. And then the last thing we'll look at before we move on, or the second, we'll look at trees here as well and how that impacts recovery. But then we'll also look at our topography. So in this case, it's really.
Oh, before you move on,
Yeah.
may I ask, can you go back to the rating sheet?
Yep.
Where you put the W-,
Mm-hmm.
isn't the next column below it the adjustment column? Isn't that where the W- goes?
Yeah, it's a good question, Jeff. So the reason I put the W- next to this 21 is because it only applies to that 21 value. And since I have two landing zones,
Oh,
I
I see.
want to make sure that I'm tying it to that. If I just had one landing zone, I could probably just write it in here and be okay. But since I have multiple ones, I really want to make sure I'm saying which landing zone it applies to.
Okay, thank you.
That's a good question, though. So let's just say we're looking at our topography. Let's just say that, I mean, we're probably not dealing with an uphill scenario. It's a tad bit uphill, but not 10 feet. So we're going to assume that it's level to our approach shot. And then here, though, we definitely don't have a completely flat lie. But since it's such a short shot, it's not going to impact our shot as much. So let's just say we have a minor to moderate problem. So 0 elevation or less than 10 feet of elevation and minor moderate problem is going to be a 2 if you look in your book. So we'd have 0 and then minor, moderate, and then that would get us to a 2. And then the last thing, so now we're done. The one other thing I wanted to talk about in this hole though was back at 145 yards, and I don't want to go back because we're in a good spot and we can see the screen and things are working. But at 145, we might have, because of the elevation, we might have a visibility issue. So we're looking to see if we can see at least 50% of the green surface from there. And so, let's just, for example purposes, assume that we can only see this little portion of the green because of the elevation. So when we have a situation like that on our Form 1, we're going to put in an adjustment under green target for our visibility, B+ here. And then that's going to impact when we get to our green target number. All right, so let's go to the green. Oh, geez. All right, so we're at the green now, and now we're going to figure out the rest of the stuff and then come up with the final evaluation for all of our values. So when we're at the green, a lot of the information that we look at is going to be gathered. A lot of the distances to lateral obstacles will be measured. So here, if I scroll down a little bit, you can see that the lateral 31 is measured for us. So I don't want to lose our spot here, but we might have to a little bit when we fill that out. So that's measured for us. And the other thing that will be measured for us is the bunker depths. So in this example here, we don't have any green side bunkers, but in the next hole we will. So the first thing when we get here is, at least how I typically do it, is I'll kind of work my way, down the sheet here. So I'm gonna start with my fairway. I'm gonna look these values up. So when I go to my fairway chart, I'm looking at how long the hole is here. So it's 395 for men. And for my scratch player, who's on the left, we got 33. 33 for 395 is a value of 3. So I'm going to write that here. Ooh, that's not a great 3. And then for my bogey player, I've got 2 values that I need to look at. When we have 2 values, we're going to take the higher value. So we're going to look at 27 for our bogey player, which is going to be a 4. But then we're also going to look at 21, which off the chart is a 6, but then we have a W minus. So that 6 turned into a 5 by the W minus is going to be more than the 4. So we're going to have a final value of 5.
Kyle scratches 4.
Oh yeah, 33. Sorry, you're right. Thank you.
You got a lot going on, trust me.
Oh, it'd help if I could read my own writing. Yeah, so John, thanks for that. So the scratch is a 4 there. And then, like I said, when we're doing 2 values, we're taking the higher value. So that's why we have our 5 here. So next we'll move down to our green target. So for our green target here, we're going to have our standard value from the table that we're going to use unless there's any adjustments. So in this case, we have a couple adjustments. We have a 4 standard, but we have a +1 visibility adjustment. So that's going to turn into a 5. And then we have an approach shot adjustment. So we'll need to make sure that that doesn't change our green target value. So if you go to your green target chart, you'll see that the difference between 25 and 30 yards for this in this scenario here, 26 is actually gonna make a difference. So I didn't plan that out, but it just happened to work out. So from 30 yards for our bogey player, our green target turns into a 3. So again, when we're looking up that value, for those of you that haven't done this before, you're looking at the green target chart. You need to know this effective green diameter here, and then the approach shot length for the type of golfer that you're looking at. So for under men, for a 30-yard approach shot for a 26 effective green diameter, we get to a value of 3.
Be sure and cross out the 2.
There you go, John. All right.
Nope,
So then,
nobody's going to want to rate with me.
then we go and we're at our green. Then we're looking at our R&R factors. So when we go to our R&R page, there's going to be certain things that we're going to look at that are going to be green side, mounding, rise and drop that falls under mounding, a few other things that we talked about before. But in this case here, it's, especially on this format, it's really difficult to be able to say, one way or the other. So we're just going to assume that there's not anything, even though there very well could be here. So we're just going to go with no adjustments for example purposes. And for our R&R, our starting point in R&R is going to be our green target values, so 5 and 3. The other thing we need to know is the rough height. So that's going to be up here at the top of the page. So our rough height is 2.5 to 3 inches. So that puts us in the 2 to 3 column for men. And then we're going to figure out our value. So we're in there, 2 or 3 column. Our scratch player green target is 5. So scratch is on the left if you're looking at the chart. And then that gets to a value of 5. And then we use a starting value of 3 for our bogey player for our green target. And we go to the column and we go to 2 to 3 rough height, and that gets us to a 4. Okay, and then next we're going to move to our bunkers. So in this case here, we have a fairway bunker, but no green side bunker. So whenever we have that scenario, we're just going to have a 1. And then our next item here is our crossing. So I know a few of the raters, and I always joke about this. I know Marv and I always fight over who gets to do the crossing when there's no values on there, but I'll let Marv take it this time. So Marv took care of the crossing. So since we don't have any crossings, they don't exist. We've got zeros. And then we move down to our lateral, and I know we're gonna have to write over a little bit, but I think we can do this. So we are looking at our lateral options here. We've got at least 2 of them for our scratch player. We got 2 of them for our scratch player, and then 3 of them for our bogey player. So just like we did with the fairway value, we're going to look at each individual one, and then we're going to take the highest value. And when we're looking at this, so for example, we'll start with our tee shots, which are 47 and 40. And so if we go to our lateral chart, for men, so the top one for blue, and we say our scratch golfer and bogey golfer both hitting full tee shots for our first one. So that's that last column. So a value of 40 and 47 is going to get us in that first column, which is going to be a value of 2. Then we need to evaluate our next ones. So let's do the scratch player first. We've got 31 at the green. Our approach shot is, and it's hard to see, but our approach shot is 145. So from 145 yards, and it being 31 yards away, that value is also a 2 from the chart. So our final value is going to be a 2. And then for our bogey player, we've got 2 additional landing zones we need to look at. The one at the green, we can start with that one. That one is a really short shot. We've got 30 yards. So when it's really short like that, you know that it's not going to be the value that's going to win. You can still look it up, but you're going to get the value to basically come out to be a 1 in that case. At 28, that's our second shot. So our second shot for the bogey player goes 170 yards. So 170 yard shot to a 28 is what we have down. That gets us a value of 4.
Quick question, Kyle.
Yeah. Mhm.
In the table, it says the distance of the penalty area from the center of the target zone. When we measured, did we do the whole width of the fairway there, or did we do half the width of the fairway from the center? So I'm a little confused as to how that works.
Sure. Yeah. No, that's a good question. So when we get these lateral numbers, what we're going to do is we're getting those from the middle of the fairway, but to the edge of the lateral. So typically how that's done is that you'll stand on the edge of the fairway and you'll shoot to the left to the water, and let's say you get 30 yards. Then you typically just do the mental math in your head and say, okay, I know my fairway width is 32 yards, so I'm going to add 16 to that number. So my value of 30 becomes 46 when I do that quick mental math. You can walk to the middle of the fairway and shoot it, but usually it's just you shoot from the edge and you do the math in your head.
Sounds good. Thanks.
Yep, good question. All right, and then the last thing that we'll do is our trees. So I know we're kind of writing all on top of everything here, but yeah, I'm just going to clear this out. Probably should have done that. But for our trees, oops. Our trees here were, again, we were evaluating it at every landing zone, but typically when we get back to the green, it's a good place for us to kind of turn around and take a look back and be able to have that final value assigned to trees. So yeah, when we're talking about trees, we're looking at, how they impact the playability of the hole, and we're looking at the recoverability of the trees, but we're using the scratch golfer's perspective when we're coming to that conclusion. So in this case here, if we look back at our trees, we're going to make an evaluation. And typically what happens when we're on the green is that we all gather together and talk about it. And so, Lori might say, okay, Bill, what'd you get for trees here? Or what's your evaluation for trees? Mark, what'd you get? Kyle, what'd you get? Patty, what'd you get? And basically we try to come to some close consensus, except with the understanding that we know that every landing zone and every tee is a little bit different. So there's going to be some trees that might come more into play for certain tees and certain landing zones than others. But in this case here, we've got, if we go to our tree chart, we can just say that we definitely have a 2-shot hole. So we're in the bottom row, and we can say maybe we're not 100% certain. So let's just say that we think it's going to be somewhere between a minor and moderate problem. So on your chart, you can see that a minor problem would be a 2 and a moderate problem would be a 4. one of the things that we do a lot with trees, or we use what we call a tweener, and we can go in between those two values. So this might be a good example of how we would do that. So we could just write down here, under overall difficulty, we can write MP, MM. It's terrible writing, and we get to a tweener value of 3. And it doesn't necessarily have to be the same for both the scratch and the bogey player, but in some cases it definitely turns out to be a similar evaluation. And then the green surface one is something that we only ask 1 or 2 people to do, so we won't spend a ton of time on that. All right, so I know we're at the end of our time here. I'm going to stick around if people want to stick around. If you need to go, the other things we're going to do a quick par 3 here. So we're going to travel through the trees at Oakland U here and go on to the next hole here. But if you have to go, we understand. No worries there.
Take a look at the chat.
Yeah, just a quick question. This is Matt. I gotta go.
Yep.
Is the schedule posted and can we start signing up yet?
Shoot, I got lost here. Okay. Yeah. So I can't focus on where I'm going and answer questions at the same time. So yeah, so we are in the process of scheduling. Some of them are done, and those have been posted on the website. So I will be sending out more information in the next handful of days once a few more of them have been put up. But yeah, you can start signing up, and we'll go over the process. But basically, when you do sign up, it's not a guarantee that you're on the team. A lot of it will depend on how many people we have that sign up, and then how many people we need, and then we'll obviously give preference to local people, and in some cases it might be an experienced only team for certain places. So yeah, you can sign up online through the GAM course rating volunteer page, but we'll have more information on specifically how to do that in the next couple of days.
Great, thanks.
All right, so we're on the tee here, and I'm going to turn this around here. So now we've got a nice par 3 here. So on a par 3, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to go to our tee, and we're going to figure out if we have any issues with visibility or any issues with trees. In this case here, from the tee that we're doing, we don't. But if you can recall, looking back at the lettuce trees, when I was turned around, there is a little corridor back there. So if you're on the very back of the tee, you might have some more tree problems. But here we're looking, and then the other thing we're going to look at here, and we'll also confirm when we get to the green, is that we see there's quite a few bunkers here. So we're going to have to evaluate whether we have a bunker carry or not. And so in this case here, it's very close. And when we did this, we actually had a good discussion about this. But basically, this tee that we're at, we determined that I think there was a bunker crossing. But then when we went up to a different tee, when we went up to this tee, because of the angle that it was at, we didn't end up applying a bunker crossing, because at this point we determined that there wasn't a significant portion of the green that was being crossed by a bunker because of the angle of the hole. So just another one of the example of, when you're out there rating your specific tee, and things that come into play for one person might not necessarily be automatically applied for another, because some of these adjustments are shot specific. So par threes are very fun because they're simple and easy, and there's not a ton of information that you need to gather. So on our form 1 here for par threes, the first thing we can do is our topography. So for our topography for par threes, there's a separate column for that in your chart. If you look at your chart, you'll see there's a par 3 column here. And we also have our green to tee elevation, which is nothing, so it's 0. So that means that our topography on this hole is going to be a 0. Okay, and then sometimes it'll just put, par 3. If I could write. In the notes there. We don't have to worry about dog legs or any forced layups. We don't have any roll because we're getting to the green on our tee shot. There was no adjustments or there's no fairway that needs to be measured. So anytime the hole is a par 3, we're not going to be measuring fairway distances. That even includes if your bogey player doesn't reach the green, we're still not measuring or putting down a fairway value here. You still might need to gather that fairway width for other applications, but it's not something that we're going to actually write down a value. You can see that the sheet is hard coded to have a 0 for fairways on par 3s. Next, we'll look at our green target. So we didn't have any adjustments, so we're just going to take these values straight down. So 6 and an 8. And then our R&R here. So when we go to our R&R chart, the main thing that we're going to be looking at when we do R&R is going to be our mounding, which is going to cover mounding or rise and drop. So in this hole here, when we look at the hole itself, when we get closer to the green here, we can see that, and it'll also confirm on our form 1 that the majority of the green is surrounded by bunkers. So when we're talking about mounding, we don't include the areas that are bordered by bunkers. So in this case here, we're not going to have any mounding, even though there are mounds, but we don't include areas that are part of the bunkering. So we won't have any adjustments for R&R here for this hole. So for our R&R, we've got our starting value of 6 and 8. Again, we're going to look at our rough height. We know is column 2 to 3. So 6 for a scratch gets us to a 5, and then an 8 for the bogey gets us to a 7. So bunkers here, we didn't have to do much with bunkers last time. So bunkers, we use the same starting value as we do for our R&R, which is these green target numbers. One thing on par 3s, we have a little note here. On par 3s, we need to make sure we put in an N minus. And basically what that means is that there's no fairway bunkers. So when we deal with the hole, the system assumes that there's fairway bunkers, and if there isn't, then we're going to have to minus or subtract a point. And then the other thing here we have is the way that it's noted when we measure it, we have this first value, which is our bunker column, and then the second value, which is the depth. So in this example here, we're saying that we're in column 4 of the bunkers, which means that it's covered by at least or more than 3/4 is surrounded by bunkers. And then the bunkers are, or parts of the bunkers are greater than 5 feet. So when we go to our bunker chart, let's start do the scratch player first. So you got a starting value of 6. And then we're in column 4. So we go all the way over to column 4, which is the greater than 3/4 in your book. And that gets us to a 6. And then we have a greater than 5 depth. So if you look at the depth chart, greater than 5 for men is going to be a +1. So we're going to write in a D plus here. So basically we had a value of 6. We're going to add 1 for this depth adjustment, but we're going to subtract 1 for par 3. So that's going to net out and we're going to get to a 6. And then for our bogey player, we've got an 8 to column 4 is an 8. And then we have the same +1, -1, netting these adjustments out gets us to a value of 8. If we were doing this for a female golfer, a greater than 5, if you look at the depth chart, greater than 5 for females is D++. So if you had multiple depth adjustments, you would write just a separate second plus there, or 3 pluses, or however many pluses you would need to write in there. For our crossings, we don't have any, so we can take care of those really quick. If we go back and we look at the hole, when we look at our laterals have been measured for us. So left 40. So we're at the green. Left 40 is going to be this. I think I don't know. I think this is Meadowbrook Hall. Maybe it's not, but it's part of it. Basically, there's out of bounds stakes here, and we measure that to be 40. So the one thing we know about OB is if we have under our lateral, we have a if it is out of bounds or stroke and distance, we have a K adjustment that gets put in. However, if our starting value is a 1, we would not apply the K adjustment here. So that's one thing we have to look at. And if we look at our value here for our scratch golfer at a 180 yard shot, 180 yard shot for scratch, the value of 40 is going to get us a value of 1. So it's going to stay that way. And we'll have a 1. I'm going to clear this. We'll have a value of 1 here because the K adjustment doesn't apply when the value is 1. But for our bogey player, 180 yards is going to be a value of 2. And then the K adjustment, since it's not 1, would apply here. But when we look back at the hole, we might want to consider that it's hard to tell from this picture, but it's kind of mounded up or banked up a little bit. So the chances of it coming into play, or the probability of it getting there, is going to be lower because of that slight uphill bank. So we might decide to potentially P minus this. So let's just do it for example purposes. We're going to apply an adjustment under lateral, the percentage, or the P adjustment, and we're going to just minus it one point for that. So we'll also throw in a P minus. And so that's going to net out the K plus, and then we're going to get the value that we got right off the chart, which is going to be a 2. And then our trees on this hole, when we get back, we look back, there really is no trees here, but we do have trees on the hole, and they exist within 50 yards of the line of play. So in this case here, even though they're very, very minor, they do exist. And so if you go to your tree chart, you'll see there's a one-shot hole column. And for a minor problem for trees, that gets us to a value of 1. And so we'd have minor problem, minor problem. All right. Any questions on that hole or anything in general, or is there anything
Kyle,
that
I just wanted to note that what you did on the lateral there with the out of bounds, I think that's really good for people to put those notations down, because they could be thinking in their mind, oh, well, it's 40 yards, but oh, well, there's a a hill there, and so they're not going to go out, and so maybe they think it's going to wash, and so they don't put anything. But then when we're going back over their sheets, we're looking, and we're thinking, oh, well, did they miss something? And do you know what I mean? So
Right.
It's nice that you showed that even though they washed it, you're making those notations with the K and the P minus.
Kyle, I would also say that, I mean, at least I do on my charts, and maybe other people wouldn't, but even at the scratch player there, because that K exists, even though we're not going to apply it, a lot of times I would put that K down there and then just cross it out to indicate I saw it, but I didn't apply it because it was already at 1 value. And that's, again, to Lori's point. So it's the captain, it's clear to the captain that they saw it and they addressed it appropriately.
Right. Yeah, I agree. That's great points. I mean, the more information that's on the sheet, the easier it'll be for the captain to understand when he or she reviews the sheets. The only thing I'll say is just on that, just especially up here in the dog leg and forced layup area, just really make sure that if you do put stuff in there that it's right, because those are big things that impact ratings. But with the adjustments and stuff, that's not as big of a deal. But just be really careful around the dog legs and forced layups and putting numbers in there that they don't belong there. But I agree 100% that it's good to have the adjustments written down, even if they wash out, or just any kind of notes so that the captain can figure out what your thought process was when you were going through and doing this. All right. Any other questions? Anything else people might want to see or an example of that we might be able to find at Oakland U?
Good job, Kyle.
Thanks.
Got the Google Earth to work, and
Yeah, it's not sure it just too much stuff on my computer, I guess.
yeah, it takes a lot of horsepower to be able to run that. If you have other applications open, I found that it can freeze up.
Kyle, any modifications that have been put up on the clothing? I know that you were gathering information there, and just wondered if that area had been updated.
Yeah, so I reached out to Wayne, our clothing guy, and he is going to add. I don't know if he's added it yet, but he is going to add a sun hat. So that'll be up there. It might be up there now, but I know he's planning on adding that. But everything else is going to stay the same. But that's out there for people to order.
Mhm.
Kyle, early on, someone was talking about offering a training where actually going out to the course and doing a couple of holes. Is that captain going to do that? Any idea when?
Yeah, so we're gonna be talking about that. We're definitely planning on doing that. Time of year is up in the air. The other thing that we just need to make sure that we're doing everything COVID compliant, and making sure that we're not, taking inside space away from people trying to eat. And then there's also gathering restrictions that we need to adhere to. So that'll be something that all of our captains will be talking about. We're going to be meeting on Tuesday, and we'll be discussing then.
But there is a plan for on-course first and second year Raider orientations. This is Mark Boltema.
Right. Yep.
Is that first year on course posted on the website? When that
No.
date might be?
No, we haven't. We're like I said, we're going to be talking about that amongst our captains on Tuesday. And once we have dates and we can make sure we can do it in a COVID compliant way, we'll definitely do it, and we'll make it available. But they haven't been scheduled.
And then the other question is on the rangefinders.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a sheet we need to sign up to order?
Yeah, there is an order form.
Okay.
If you
I
want,
missed it.
yeah, Theodore can send it to you if you want to. Who's talking right now? Sorry,
Michelle Yasnik.
Michelle, yeah. If you, Theodore, if you can send that form over to Michelle.
Yep, I'll get it too.
Thank you.
Yep.
Please send me one too. This is Jeff Reynolds.
And
Okay.
Theodore, could you send one to Dave Stossler? He's the new person from Rochester Hills. We were talking about the need for a rangefinder. He might be interested in participating in that as well.
Yeah, of course. I'll track down that form and I'll get it to you guys to fill out.
All right, thank you.
Of course.
Kyle, in terms of the sign up, when will the course signups start? And how rapidly do we have to volunteer to get on preferred courses?
Yeah, so we'll be posting them as we schedule them. There are some up there already.
Okay. I haven't seen how to access them. I'm on the site now, and I see a list of courses to be rated, but I don't see any way to. I don't see any place to volunteer.
Yeah, on the home screen there should be a video that covers how to sign up for events.
Okay.
But if not, we'll get in touch. Who is talking?
This is Ernie.
Ernie. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll follow up with Theodore. You want to write that down? We'll follow up with the video, but you can do that. And so in terms of how that sign up process is going to work, or how the selection process is going to work, again, it's going to be based on how many spots we have available, how many people sign up, and then preference will be given to local raters. But in some cases, we might require a certain number of experienced raters to be on that list as well.
Yep. And Kyle, this is Mark again. Lots of times, to be able to get a preferential kind of course, one would need to pay the dues and rate some non-necessarily primary courses along the way there too.
Right. Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah. There won't be any rookies out on Oakland Hills or Blythefield or whatever this year.
Yep.
Yeah, I was going to add something about that too. Thank you, Mark. I always tell the newer people, we have a really good team of people and of raters, and they fully understand that if you're not going to rate the municipal course, you're not rating Orchard Lake or some of the primo courses. So our seasoned people know that, and they show up for everything in our area, and that's important to do. And of course, some courses, like you said, are only going to be very experienced raters just because of the nature of the course. So.
Yep.
Sounds good. Thanks, Kyle.
Yeah, no problem.